It's a special pleasure to start with this month of activities with our much valued partners, Dr. Mia Mikic from the United Nations ESCAP and Mr. Wilson White from Google. And I also want to acknowledge at the beginning distinguished experts on our first panel and its eminent moderator, Professor Jiro Kokurio, who has been for a long time part of our key leadership in Apiu. Most grateful to you. So a warm welcome to everyone who's just joined this virtual event. Why is Apiu working so hard on AI for social good? Well, you only need to look at our 56 members who are leading research universities located around the Pacific Rim, spanning East and Southeast Asia, North and South America, Australia and New Zealand. From their very diverse contexts, our member universities have incredible reach and research depth in the challenges facing this region, from extreme climate events to global health issues, from demographic shifts, population aging, climate, refugees, etc., to the need to strengthen social participation and governance when facing complex cross-border problems. So bringing their knowledge, expertise, and innovation together in a collective effort makes a powerful contribution to our societies and to the health of the planet. But of course, we can't do this alone. We need other partners in the international community, international organizations and global companies, as well as local communities. So I see AI for social good as an expression which encompasses a basket of increasingly rapid technological changes which are rolling out amidst the realities of inequality, the urgent transition to renewable energy, and unexpected international tensions, just to name a few. So these innovations hold great promise if, as this important summit intends, we find the ways to ensure the benefits are shared with those who need them most, and not only those who can afford them. For this reason, I expect the panels, discussions, and the networking opportunities will yield insights on public participation in policy making, especially governance and regulation, as well as enhancing the capabilities of different communities to make AI work for them. As educators and researchers, we know that technology is not neutral. Everything depends on who owns it, how it is used, by whom and for what purpose. Public accountability at all levels is vital, and there are already significant deficits in most societies around the world. However, our task today and for the rest of the month is to take an optimistic view of the future and how AI can serve humanity as we seek solutions to seemingly intractable challenges. I'm sure we have the right people attending this summit to take up this task, and I welcome you all again. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Chris. And for those who are wondering, yes, you did hear right, networking opportunities, even though we are doing this in a virtual space. If you've checked off the sort of checkbox as part of the registration that says you'd like to meet with other stakeholders in your country, we are actually hosting networking opportunities for this virtual summit. So the next person I'd like to introduce is Mia Mikic, who's the Director of Trade and Investment at the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for the Asia Pacific. Mia, over to you.
Well, good morning from Bangkok, and I just want to add to what my colleague Chris was talking about, the optimistic perspective on the partnership of Apiu, Google, many researchers that are joining us, and other participants. And I really, am privileged to be sharing this morning AI for Social Good month kickoff. I think I will not be discovering anything new if I say that we have been living and enjoying the benefits of artificial intelligence for quite some time. I think Generation Z doesn't know the world without it. But the most significant realization, I think, for us has been that AI can be channeled to deliver social or public goods and services. And the most important social good to be delivered to all without leaving anyone behind is the future to live sustainably. So the reason or the need to support delivery of SDGs was why we in ESCAP, the regional arm of United Nations, have started to partner with research institutions and technology leaders in the business to work under this project. We all aspired to discover options and solutions applicable by policymakers in this promising emerging technology area. The partnership itself focuses on developing cutting-edge research and policy advice on artificial intelligence for sustainable development and converting them into concrete recommendations to be used by policymaking and enabling them to make better informed decisions in delivery of public goods and services. I think artificial intelligence holds great promise for improving government effectiveness and delivery of public goods. Governments also play a critical role in facilitating and adapting and setting the direction of AI development. However, as the recent ESCAP and Google report on this topic shows, new applications of AI in the public sector often bear the risk of failure because either the technology is not mature enough or not compatible with its underlying context, for example, institutional setting. And admittedly, in some cases, simply AI has negative impacts. So we hope that this series of webinars will present different perspectives that can help inform decision-making by those responsible for shaping the future of AI, particularly in ensuring that AI supports greater social good. The last 10 months, living and dying with COVID-19 has shown us many opportunities in which data and artificial intelligence technologies can be used to the advantage of humans. Sadly, it has also opened our eyes to many unresolved societal, technological, and above all, ethical challenges related to using and managing artificial intelligence. To defeat this pandemic, recover from it, and fortify our societies for the future, we have to consolidate efforts to find a way to channel AI towards doing good, causing no harm. We in ESCAP hope that we will continue working together in this partnership, which has delivered beyond expectations in a relatively short time since 2018 when we started. We also aspire to work with the current partners and the new ones to strengthen the ARTNet on SDI Policy Network, a regional research and training network supporting policy research, to leverage science, technology, and innovation as powerful engines for sustainable development in Asia Pacific. I'm looking forward to the next several weeks of our conversations and wish all a productive and enjoyable Artificial Intelligence for Social Good month. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Mia. And so UNSCAP is one of the main partners behind this initiative, helping make it happen, as is Google. And so I'd like to invite Wilson White, who's the Director of Public Policy, Government and Government Relations at Google, to tell us a little bit about their involvement and the why behind this initiative. Over to you, Wilson.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Chris and the team at APRU and Mia and the team at the United Nations ESCAP. And good morning, everyone, and thank you all for your time today. As Carl said, I'm Wilson White. I'm an executive at Google's headquarters in Mountain View, California. So while it's morning for you, it's early evening for us here in California. In my role at Google, I'm the global head of government affairs and public policy for all of Google's core products. And I know I speak for many people on the call today when I say that I wish we could all be together in person for this important summit. But one of the things I think the COVID-19 situation has showed us is it's a true testament of the power of technology to allow us to continue sharing information and to connecting across borders, across barriers. And that's a good message for us to keep in mind as we navigate our way through these trying times. Hopefully the COVID-19 situation improves around the world soon so that we can all be together in person. But nonetheless, I'm very, very pleased to be able to kick off this AI for Social Good month today. AI has been around for a while. It was kind of first introduced in the mid 1950s in academia. But only recently have we started seeing, thanks to some of the advancements in supporting technologies, we're starting to see the real life applications of this technology and its potential. But with any emerging technology like artificial intelligence, there are huge benefits. But there are also new and interesting and complex and difficult questions, issues, risks, and concerns that we must wrestle with as a society. And since we launched the AI for Social Good project in Bangkok last December, so almost a year now, this coalition, this network has brought together leading academics from around the region to produce research on how to promote the use of AI for social good so that we're maximizing those benefits, but also research on how best to manage those resulting risks and concerns that naturally come with this progression in technology. Like many of you, I look forward to hearing and learning more about the research from exciting panels of those academics, from governments, civil society, as well as the private sector during this AI for Social Good month. I'm glad that you'll get a chance to hear from speakers from these organizations during the series of webinars that we'll have the benefit of participating in. Let me say a little bit about what AI means for us at Google. At Google, we believe that AI is and will be overwhelmingly beneficial for society. In addition to using AI to make our products better and more useful, AI can also provide new ways of approaching some of the world's biggest humanitarian challenges, from predicting natural disasters to protecting endangered species, to helping us gain efficiencies in our everyday task. But at the same time, AI is not a silver bullet. Tackling these challenges will require a concerted, collaborative effort across all sectors of society. Now, Google is very much focused on and investing in the work that is needed to better understand how AI can positively transform economies and societies, while addressing the hard questions around governance and the policy issues that we need to address. As you know, Google's mission is to organize the world's information and to make it universally accessible and useful, helpful for our users. And through investments in technologies like artificial intelligence, we've gone from helping users find information on the web to helping users search the whole world around, uncovering new insights that have never been available before. And so with these recent advancements in AI, we're making bigger leaps forward and improvements to Google, but hopefully also improvements to society that we've seen over the past decade. So I'd like to personally and sincerely thank APRU and the UN SCAP for the partnership, for organizing this very exciting series of webinars with renowned speakers from around the region. And I would like to thank everyone who's taken time out of your admittedly busy schedules to tune into this session. I trust that you will find the information very informative, insightful, and useful in your day-to-day work. So until we are able to meet together in person, stay safe, be well, and again, thank you.
Thanks so much, Wilson. Now, what I'd love to do is to introduce a very dynamic moderator who will be taking us through the next part of the conversation. And so we have Jiro Kokuryo who is the Vice President of Information Infrastructure at Keio University, Japan. And he's also the key person who has helped put together the AI for Social Good report, right? So he'll probably tell you a little bit more about that report, but Jiro has been editing and has been really leading on that report, which is an excellent, very interesting report on AI for social good in Asia. So Jiro, over to you to lead us through our panel.
Hello, thank you very much for this kind introduction. My name is Jiro Kokuryo from Keio University, and I've been the project coordinator for academic effort preceding this important summit. The UN Apiu Google project for AI for social good. That's that was held between 2018 and 2020. Next slide, please. And the aim of the project was to really come up with policy recommendation that is research and evidence-based to apply AI for social good. And we have been studying about enabling environment and governance structure that are necessary for this goal. Next slide, please. And eight researchers from key research institutions have run their own project, as well as getting time together from time to time to really brush up and exchange ideas. So the projects are individual, independent, and yet have a common tone, which, next slide, I am going to boldly summarize. Some of the researchers may object to my summary, but this is my take, is that, I mean, two key messages is to ensure access to big data and AI capabilities to all people and to be inclusive. So that's one of the key message. And the other thing is, in order to make that happen, we need governance, particularly governance around data. And that monopoly of data by any kind of institutions is unhealthy unless we have proper check and balance around them. And each of the researchers have given some their concrete suggestions in their expertise, areas of expertise. One thing that I would like to, next slide, please, emphasize a little bit is the opportunity for offering Asian or perspective in this. One of the researcher, Soraj, to be specific, really gave a very important suggestions that there may be alternative to Western style individualistic or Eastern style state control of data, but somehow applying this Asian tradition of altruism may provide a different principle for really coming up with the benefit of sharing data while ensuring that the dignity of people are ensured. So if you're interested, please read that. With that, let me move on to introducing today's panelist. The first is P. Anandan, who is the CEO of Wadhwani Institute for AI India, and along with many other titles. And the second speaker is Mark van Hollebeck, Principal Ethics Strategist from Microsoft USA. Next slide, please. And Professor Dong Sam Park of HRDWG Leading Shepherd of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation and from Korea. And Pascal Fang, Director, Center for Artificial Intelligence Research Center at HKUST Hong Kong. So I am very happy that as you can see, we have a really distinguished speaker from a diverse background that are today giving us time to share their views on some of the critical issues. So without delay, let me move, first ask Anandan. Are you ready? Yes. You've been working with the government to enable effectively to make use of AI, and how are you doing that? And what do you see as some of the shifts in how government should work to really for the people to take advantage of artificial intelligence. Could you give us your view?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank Zero, APRU, and Google, and everyone else who organized this event for giving me this opportunity, but also for participating in this entire process. As an advisor and reviewer, it's been really very enlightening and a good learning experience for me as well. To answer your question, I'll kind of say it in two parts. One, of course, what does it take to do AI for social good, and where the government's role is important. And the second part, which is the question that you asked about, how could government, what are the shifting things? The key thing to understand is that social good in LMIC, low and middle income country, ultimately means that taking care of poor and underserved communities. And the only agency that does it at scale is the government in every country, in fact, regions and states as well. So fundamentally, you have to work with the government, but also with a large number of social sector partners, NGOs typically. And the key point is that NGOs, while they're very good at executing and delivering solutions, they are not very tech savvy. On the other hand, capabilities for developing AI solutions, managing data, innovations, lie firmly with the commercial tech sector companies like Google's, and there is that gap. And there is not enough market incentives for those companies to play a major role to shape the ecosystem. And this is where the government is very important in stitching together. And in fact, we find ourselves working in the middle, working with tech partners and the governments and NGOs, and very closely working with the government. And that method of partnership is fundamental to achieving AI for social good. One of the key things that the government needs to do and is gradually learning to do in these countries is really creating a very rigorous, well-managed data ecosystem. In fact, the fundamental problem in the social sector is that data is not available. And when it's available, it's siloed and it's noisy, it's often false, and it's not complete. And only the government has the ability to try to identify where they exist and provide the incentives and other factors to do that. So this is essentially what I was saying, that in fact, in the cycle of problem definition, use case identification, data set creation, technology POC, this is a typical cycle that any R&D company would do. If you go to the next slide, you will see that the capabilities for doing the things below typically lies with NGOs, governments, and domain experts, health or agriculture and so forth, whereas the technology capabilities lie above. And this gap is a fundamental gap that needs to be bridged, and it would take a government to really play an active role and create the data ecosystem for doing that. So I think I should stop there, given the time limits.
But thank you very much. The task of creating data ecosystem is indeed a critical topic that we need to explore. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Mark. Well, with the speed of change around AI and considerable uncertainty about its effects on society, the governments will need new ways of thinking about governing AI. Could you tell us, I mean, you work for Microsoft, could you tell us how Microsoft is thinking about its own AI ethic and governance? And how should policy around something that involves so much change and uncertainty should be done?
Yes, sure. It's a great question. I think you're absolutely right that there is a lot of uncertainty in this space. And with a lot of complex topics around data innovation, security, privacy, there are clear regulations and laws that govern the way that companies should behave in that space. And those laws just don't really exist for AI. There isn't a clear regulatory landscape for companies to follow. And at Microsoft, the way that we address that is we start with our own mission to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we look at that mission and say, there are some fundamental values behind that mission and a commitment to human rights. And those values and those commitments are what will guide our decisions as we develop and deploy AI. So we rely on our own principles, like many institutions represented here in the conversation. We have declared and committed to a set of responsible AI principles, and those help us navigate some of the thorny ethical issues. We have a governance framework within the company where there is a corporate-wide policy on what responsible AI looks like, and we have an Office of Responsible AI that governs those rules and makes sure that they're implemented in the engineering orgs. But more importantly, that's a lot of talk about policy and standards. More importantly, the key is to put people first and to have human-centered design. We can't treat AI like just another innovation and innovate for innovation's sake. We have to innovate for human need and for solving human problems. And so one of the big things that we do at Microsoft is a stakeholder analysis around any sort of AI project that we're designing. Who is this going to impact? What are the benefits to all these stakeholders? And what are the risks of harm that the stakeholders would encounter through this AI project or the system or the problem that it's trying to solve? And to the degree that we can identify those potential harms, we know which ones to mitigate. And so we're not looking to laws and regulations which don't exist. We're looking to our own principles and values, and then we're looking to the impact on real human beings and how to ensure benefit and reduce the likelihood of harm.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's really encouraging to hear Microsoft having a very firm and a policy around human-centered design. In the second half part, in the next opportunity you speak, perhaps you can touch upon how you may want to collaborate with governments and the government policies in order to really make these principles effective in a broader social context. Yeah, beyond your Microsoft's own services. But thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to Professor Park. While there's a debate about whether AI is net positive or negative for job creation, something we can be reasonably certain of is that it's going to create structural change in the labor market. How big of a change should government in Asia be ready for? And what can governments and business do to ensure people are not left behind?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for having me. And it's great to have this wonderful opportunity to exchange ideas on AI. I think the answer to your first question is that we're going to have a very huge change. Some people say exponential change, because we are talking about job creation of, so according to the World Economic Forum, I have the figure here, job creation of 130 million jobs will be created by 2020. I mean, by 2022. But 75 million jobs will be gone because of the AI. So it'll be a net increase of jobs, but the total restructuring of job market, which will be very challenging to the government. So government will be even tempted to manage the speed of the change, but I think it'll be very unsuccessful for government to do that, because it's impossible to put the genie back into the bottle, so to speak. So as somebody said in the book, we should rise with AI, not race with AI, because it's going to be a failure to race with AI. And specifically, that means that the government should be prepared to provide upskilling and reskilling opportunities for workers. And then the issue will be who pays for the reskilling and upskilling or training and education. And the social good by definition is something that everybody wants to benefit from it, but nobody wants to pay for it. So nobody wants to pay for the reskilling, upskilling. So government would say the companies or entrepreneurs should bear the brunt of paying for the upskilling and retraining, and people would say the government should do more. So maybe both the governments and entrepreneurs or companies will share their burden of paying for the reskilling and upskilling for preparing the workers to prepare for their new jobs. So with this huge change, it's going to be coupled with other changes like hyper-intelligence, hyper-fusion change, hyper-aging change. I mean, it's going to be a hyper-aging society. And the problem with that is that aged people tend to be left behind in coping with AI changes. So they are the ones who may be very vulnerable when you have this exponential change brought about by AI. And we're going to have hyper-intelligence characterized by IoT, cloud, big data, mobile, what they call ICBM kind of change. And we're going to have a hyperfusion change, meaning we're going to have nano, bio, info, cogno fusion to speed up this exponential change. So I think we better be prepared for this huge change, and the government has a huge role to play. And maybe international organizations and forums like this will help governments to cope with this big change. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I like to ask you the reverse of what I asked to Mark. I asked Mark about how companies should collaborate with the government, and perhaps you're talking about the government playing central role, but perhaps it cannot be done by government alone, probably. So it's really involves a lot of key players working together. So if you could touch upon that in the second half, looking into the future, I very much appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will.
Pascal, I know you have been involved in many projects, really trying to make use of technology, particularly in the health area. But you, at the same time, I know you have been very vocal about the dangers, the risk involved, and the need to manage the process very well. So can you share with us how in your work, what you see as the key barriers to unlocking the potential of AI for social good? And I'm going to ask about how to make these, overcome them, and in the second half, but can you start talking about that also?
Sure. So first of all, I'm foremost a researcher in AI. I've been in the area of natural language processing for 30 years. So I will be, so my experience has been more from the AI innovator or researcher's point of view. But currently I'm directing the Center for AI Research at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And I would like to speak to that. This is an interdisciplinary research center. And I would like to express my view that to unlock the AI technology for social good, we require multi-stakeholder and multidisciplinary collaboration today, right away. And this is the establishment of our center is precisely for that reason. And today we collaborate with the health industry, people in the hospitals. We collaborate with people in the education sector. We also even collaborate with designers and artists. And I will just use one example to illustrate my point of view. I met the director of this epidemic intelligence from open source platform, EIOS of the WHO. I met Dr. Oliver Martin at the World Economic Forum last year, where he sought me out and say, I should use NLP to help with epidemic intelligence. And that was like a year ago, more than a year ago in July 2019. And I had no idea, absolutely no idea how NLP could be involved in anything that has to do with epidemic intelligence. Half a year later, of course, we're hit with COVID-19, and we actually are collaborating currently on using deep learning, question answering, and summarization technologies for mining epidemic intelligence from open sources. So this is one very concrete example of how multidisciplinary collaboration, multi-stakeholder collaboration is absolutely necessary to unlock the potential of AI for social good. Do I still have time or?
Well, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, thank you for helping me manage the time. I will. In fact, this is a nice lead into the second half of the discussion that I like to have. Is Anandan talked about developing ecosystem of data, and then Mark touched upon how human-centered design of AI should be established, and that he promised me to talk about the collaboration with the government on promoting that. And Professor Park also, of course, emphasized really in terms of developing people, or it's not just the technology that should advance, people should advance also, and that orchestration of government industry collaboration is probably necessary to really promote that. And of course, Pascal, he gave a wonderful example of, I mean, in this pandemic situation, how she orchestrated a new collaboration, making use of data to literally save lives. So my question to all the panelists is, how do you realize, while collaborating with key stakeholders, the kind of things that you emphasized are important? I think that this next round of talk is going to probably be that we'll use up all our time in the second question, but if you could do that with perhaps some mention, I mean, if you can, touch upon other panelists' comments. That I think that will help enrich this discussion much more. So can I have Anandan start on this also again?
Yeah, I think I want to pick up on what Mark said, and also one of the earlier speakers, which is two aspects. One is human-centered design, but also appropriateness in the context where the AI solution may be applied. And this was mentioned by one of the keynote speakers in the beginning. And that is, you cannot actually easily transfer a solution that may work in a certain community and segment to a different situation, especially with AI, because a lot of the assumptions about the background conditions simply don't apply. So I'll just illustrate this with a simple example, right? So for example, one of the problems that we are currently working on is helping classify newborn babies as regular weight, normal weight, or low birth weight. Now you would think that a good solution, weighing machine would do that. But in fact, 30% or 40% of newborn babies who are underweight in developing countries are not actually counted. And that's because a lot of the birth happens in a small clinic or home, which doesn't have the appropriate facilities. And the weighing is done by using a spring balance that's, where the baby is put into a sack and then it's carried. Very error prone because the balance is not always working right. Often the balance is not available. and people just enter false data as a result by looking at what the baby is. Now, think about this kind of a solution. If you develop any solution, it should be usable without requiring a lot of hardware, without without requiring a fancy kind of a measuring device, and be used by someone with a usually a frontline healthcare worker, because there are not enough doctors. Typically, the number of qualified doctors to people ratio in poor communities can be literally 1 is 10,000, 20,000, and so on. It's not even easy to conceive. So you want to develop a solution which can be used by a frontline health worker easily at home, and in a way where it does not require touching the baby, because in many communities, nobody would like a newborn baby to be touched by an outside person, right? Naturally, for very good reasons of health and the safety of the baby. So we actually looked at this problem, and how do we first of all learn about this problem? We learn about the problem by talking to health system agencies, by talking to other NGOs that are working in addressing these challenges in frontline health, specifically maternal and child health. And after a few days of talking of workshops, we learned that this problem may be a critical problem in terms of the neonatal mortality as well as the growth of the baby, early growth of the baby, things like stunting and wasting and so on. So we realized that we could do this using a computer vision technique, where we can have a person, a frontline health worker, take a few pictures of the baby using a cell phone camera, and using state-of-the-art AI technology that, of course, needs to be modified, customized, and developed, create a 3D model of the baby from which you can measure the volume, and from the volume you can estimate the weight. As it happens, babies are almost constant density 1.04 typically, early babies. And that approach would prevent from having to ship new devices, having to do specialized hardware for this, having to touch the baby and so on. So this is, to me, a solution that you would come up with only if you apply the contextual understanding about the problem, as well as doing an appropriate design that is suitable for being used by the people who are giving care in the front line. So then, of course, even if you do that, then there is a huge challenge, which is how do we actually take this solution to field? In fact, one reason why we took upon this is because there is a mandate in India, for example, that all the frontline health workers need to have a smartphone, a basic smartphone, but a smartphone, by sometime now. And it's there, about 2/3 have already have that. And there are multiple government programs related to frontline health workers that require periodic visits, and we can put them into their workflow. So in other words, in order for you to do this, you already have to have a workflow or a system in place that you can leverage on. If you have to create a whole new system, it won't happen, because with this untested AI, something that people don't fully understand, the governments are not going to go around creating these systems. And in fact, health is actually a state subject. It's not enough to solve it in one problem. So you have to take a system approach that's broadly used across states in order to deliver this. So I'm just using this one example to make some of the points, which is that you really need to work in context with the systems in place and how they can be augmented, and how, who's the user, how they can, use it and design the solution for them.
Thank you very much. We really have to make the technology accessible so that everybody can use. Thank you very much. Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I think, Mark. Okay, go ahead. So I thought it was Mark.
Yes. I'd like to echo some of the things that Dr. Anandan said. Context matters. And when you are building AI systems, part of what we're trying to do is help usher in a digital transformation to a bunch of different fields. And that digital transformation means that every institution that's going through this digital transformation becomes a data company or a tech company of sorts. But on the flip side, those who are helping to build the AI have to become domain experts in the space that they're driving digital transformation into. And so there really has to be this collaboration between the technical expert and the domain expert. And we have to understand the context of the domain expert and build systems where you you validate the outputs with the domain expert. I mean, this is true when you're building the model to begin with. What's the most salient data in this data set? The technologist doesn't often know. They have to speak to the domain expert to understand that. And so context matters, domain expertise matters, speaking to stakeholders matter. And you asked me earlier about, you know, how companies can collaborate with governments here. And I think it's a great question. I think first, you know, the technology companies have to see that government is a stakeholder in many of these AI systems. And so just as you would speak to domain experts about the accuracy, the validity, the usefulness of the system, you should also be in conversation with governments about what your intentions are and what you're trying to achieve. So two of the principles that we have at Microsoft that help guide that are transparency and accountability. And we use those to enable both regulators and policymakers and governments to look in on what we're doing, but also to enable the people who are building on our platforms to know how to use them responsibly. We use things like transparency notes, where we document the strengths and limitations of the systems that we're building. And we use things like model cards, which explain how a model is built, what data was used to design, to train the model, and some of the limitations of what the model is capable of. So that's transparency, where government can watch what we're doing, and where those who are building off the systems know how to use it appropriately. And I think that's where a space of collaboration between government and industry can continue to grow.
We didn't hear you, Ichiro. You had to.
Oh, Professor Park?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, me. I think on the domestic level, I think we need trilateral cooperation between academia, business, and government. As Mark said, maybe companies and businesses can produce ideas and knowledge and expertise, and the government can play a coordinating role to bring three sectors together to produce a AI-friendly environment. And international cooperation is also, I think, is important. And quickly, I'm reminded of a very recent development, which is Digital Economy Partnership Agreement between three API economies, Singapore, Chile, and New Zealand. And this is very interesting because they're talking about exchanging data and to have a cooperation in this AI age, so that there will be no national boundaries interfering with free flow of data and ideas and goods. So this kind of international cooperation would be very encouraging, and this international cooperation can be expanded and more given weight to by other international organizations such as, you know, OECD or APEC or UNESCA for that matter. So I think both domestic cooperation on trilaterally and international cooperation would be very productive and in need for creating this AI-friendly environment.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, that's indeed why we think this a summit like this is really important. I see a lot of comments. I'm sorry I haven't been able to address all the comments that appear in the chat box. Some of them are really great. Unfortunately, I don't have we don't have the time to orchestrate Q&A around that. But I'm seeing lots of great responses from people who are actually players in the field. So I'd like to thank everybody in advance for that. Pascal, what can you give your comments, particularly in really, you mentioned about how you are battling with the with the current pandemic, but what should be done? I mean, what improvements do you think we need in order to really make use of the technology effectively and safely?
So in response to other panelists' comments, I think, we all agree that multi-stakeholder, multidisciplinary collaboration is really, really necessary. We could not work on, AI researchers could not work on problems on pandemic or cancer research or precision medicine without close collaboration with the medical professionals. However, there's also one very, very critical element in order for us to unlock the potential of AI research, which is data. So domain data, for example. So, so in my experience, perhaps the most successful recent story on using AI for COVID-19, one of the most, at least using natural language processing, my field, for COVID-19 was this in response to an open call by Kaggle. So if you can show the link. So this is an open challenge, and where Microsoft and Facebook and OpenAI, and as well as the White House, was involved in releasing a open source all the medical publications, research publications in COVID-19 at the beginning of this year. And it was an urgent call to AI researchers, AI teams to come up with tools to help medical professionals in their research for the vaccine and other related areas to combat this pandemic. And they open source all these now about 70,000 medical research publications. Usually they are behind paid walls and not accessible to researchers in AI, for example, us. We're not in that discipline, right? So they put this database together, open sourced it. So about over 1,000 teams answered to this open call and came up with various AI solutions, search tools, question answering systems, summarizers. And we won one of the tasks by providing a question answering system with summarization. So this is a very good example of open source domain knowledge database and to enable AI research. So recently, perhaps the most famous, maybe the most well-known success in using AI for cancer research has been in radiology. So we probably know that the modern computer vision can already diagnose cancer from X-rays better than human, sometimes better than human radiologists. So, but there are other possibilities. For example, research on genome sequence of cancer cells and so on. That is currently we've met with the challenge and the obstacle of we're unable to access patient data and cancer data from at the scale where this open source data was enabled us to do. So I think that is a very, very important important element, actually critical, to unlock the potential of AI for social good. And this, I think, it requires government initiatives to tell the hospitals, and also private initiatives, foundations and NGOs or private donors, because the sequencing the DNA of cancer cells is very expensive. I'm told that it costs about $1,000 US one per sequence. So it requires investment, it requires private sector sponsorship, requires the doctors and clinics to come together to aggregate the data, I wouldn't say donate the data, just open source the data. And for AI researchers to come up with research methods such as federated learning, so we can use machine learning to come up with models without intruding on patient privacy. So this is something that we all need to work on urgently together if we want to really realize the promise of AI for precision medicine to cure cancer, Alzheimer's, and all kinds of and of course, current pandemic and future pandemic.
Thank you, Pascal, for your very powerful. In fact, I think you summarized the whole session and made my job easy. Thank you very much. And the time is almost up. Well, thank you to all the people who participated, particularly the collaborator, the panelists in this discussion. Of course, we probably haven't covered everything, and yet I think we've laid out a high-level agenda fairly nicely, and as well as coming up with these key notions of how we should both recognize the context and the domain-specific things, while the need to really go across borders, institutionally, discipline-wise, in many ways, really breaking the traditional walls for collaboration, and how governments and companies and NGOs, everybody should work together in order to orchestrate that. And I hope this summit will be helpful in that direction. I'm sure the series of this summit session following us will cover many of the issues and dig a little deeper in each of the subjects. So Carl, I think I need to give the microphone back to you. But thank you very much, everybody, for this very stimulating time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jiro, and thank you all to the panelists. Now, as Jiro was saying, this is just a preview event. So we have covered a kind of wide span of things, or we've attempted to as part of this conversation. We're going to have this fantastic set of speakers, and this is just a preview of them from all across Asia Pacific and beyond, who will be contributing on a variety of topics. So we're going to have a number of sort of slightly longer events where there'll be opportunities to also interact with other people from your country. Some of those stakeholders will have policy briefings for policymakers and a series of other events as part of this month. On the left side here, you can have a look at the schedule. So our next event is on the 3rd, and it has to do with access to data, computing power, hardware, infrastructure. On the 5th, we're going to be talking about building capabilities in AI. On the 12th, the enabling environment. So how do we actually create that in a country, and what are some of the things that we can do, especially when there are a few dominant countries in the AI space, and there are many countries that are sort of trying to participate, right, or trying to get some benefits from this space. We've got multi-stakeholder governance and co-regulation as a key topic on the 17th, and I think we've talked a lot about collaboration sort of today, and we're clearly seeing that this is an important theme. How do we actually do that? And then we've got accountability and regulation, and we have governance happening on the 26th. So we really look forward to seeing you as part of some of these additional events, and you'll be able to register at the APRU AI for Social Good month website, which you can see up here at the top to attend any of these other events. For now, that's it from all of us, and we're wishing you a wonderful rest of your day.